Americans split over Florida's controversial bills on gender identity and race.
So controversial.
Let me just slow down here and correct the article before we even get into
Yeah.
it. They're, of course, referring to the Parental Rights and Education bill, which the Democrats call Don't Say Gay, which is a lie.
It's weird.
It is controversial, fine, I guess, but it is not a bill on gender identity and race. That seems strange to me. The bulk of the bill in Florida, as we often clarify, is parents have a right to know what's happening.
Yep.
That and no sex ed for preschoolers to third grade.
5, 6, 7, 8 years old.
That's it. Teachers are still allowed to talk to kids and say the word gay to their faces. A teacher can still go up to a child and say, you should be gay. That is not being banned in any way. Makes you wonder about what the Republicans are actually doing.
I mean, bill doesn't even nearly go far enough.
So here we go. I love this. Politico says, the poll asked respondents about Florida's parental rights and education, dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill by opponents. Now, here's the funny thing. In their actual poll, the question refers to it as Don't Say Gay.
Yep.
And I'm like, that is not proper polling.
Dishonest.
But you're still seeing the majority say they agree with it.
I really don't like how they're framing it as Americans being sharply divided on this issue. I mean, there's a 16-point gap there. And you got 30. This is an issue where 33% of Democrats support what DeSantis did.
Yeah.
That's not sharply divided. I'm sorry. Like, when you're over 50% and your opponents are at 35, imagine if Donald Trump had beaten Joe Biden by 51% to 35%. That's a landslide, right? Like, so it's just the whole thing is skewed. The questions are skewed, but they had to at least admit it that they're not.
One of the crazy things is that 69% of Americans support the banning of Sputnik and RT, it appears. I mean, that's kind of crazy to me. You should just watch that stuff knowing it's probably bunk, but see what they're telling people for sure. But I'm gonna see if I can find the exact question here, because it's funny. The Politico poll question is not just here we go. Instead of saying, do you support the parental rights and education bill out of Florida? They say this. As you may know, the Florida legislature has passed a bill labeled by opponents as the Don't Say Gay bill, limiting the teaching of sexual orientation and gender identity to Florida school students. Some say that limiting these discussions will protect children from inappropriate classroom topics, while others say it will block important conversations about LGBTQ issues. To what extent do you support or oppose the following items in the bill? Banning the teaching of sexual orientation and gender identity from kindergarten through third grade. Strong support is 37%. Somewhat support is 13%. And then somewhat opposed is 11%, strongly opposed 23%.
Weirdo.
Clearly see the majority there is in favor of, in support of it. They then go on to ask basically the same question, and then say, limiting lessons on orientation and identity after third grade to age-appropriate discussions, and you still have the majority, 32% in support of, 20% somewhat supporting. So you still have the majority there being like, yeah, it should be age-appropriate. My question is, what would the percentage have been if they didn't frame this in favor of lies from the Democrats, from the left?
They tell you what the opponents of the bill call it, but not the actual name in the question. How much more bias can you get with it?
And they push the lie from the Democrats instead of telling you what the bill actually does. They say opponents say it will block important conversations about LGBTQ issues. That's irrelevant. What if they said this? Let me read you the question reframed. As you may know, the Florida legislature has passed a bill labeled by opponents as the Don't Say Straight bill, limiting the teaching of orientation and identity to Florida school students. Some say that limiting these discussions will protect children from inappropriate classroom topics, while others say it will block important conversations about traditional marriage issues. To what extent do you support or oppose the following items in the bill? There's no difference in the bill. I could literally call it Don't Say Straight and say Republicans have just banned teaching children about traditional marriage. It's true. Literally true. But see, Politico comes out and they poll people. Now, here's why I bring this up. Even though they falsely framed the story based on lies, the majority still agree with it.
Exactly.
It's weird. There's like a super majority of Americans, and I know this is pretty radical, like that the vast majority of Americans, they don't want to sexualize kids. Like, they want to let them be kids, like, why do we have to make everything sexual? Someone tweeted at me today. They said, not everything has to be gay. And I think that that's right. Like, great. You do you, live your life, fine. But not everything has to be about you.